I'm going to read you 3 parts of a book that I wrote in 2010. Now that was 16 years ago. 16 years ago, I was just researching organized gang stalking. It was happening to me, but I didn't really understand it. And so I wouldn't recommend this book. It was called Organized Gang Stalking, New Torture Tactic to Neutralize Citizens, and I self-published it by Lulu Press. I'm going to read you parts. The first part that I'm going to read you from my book is on COINTELPRO. All right, this is what I wrote on COINTELPRO. On the first pages of the book, entitled Intelligence Activities and the Rights of American, 1976 U.S. Senate Report on Illegal Wiretaps and Domestic Spying by the FBI, CIA, NSA, by the Church Committee. So this book was written by the Church Committee, which is the U.S. Senate Select Committee on Intelligence Activities within the United States. And in that book it said, unless new and tighter controls are established by legislation, domestic intelligence activities threaten to undermine our democratic society and fundamentally alter its nature. The Church Committee was a Senate committee chaired by Senator Frank Church in 1975 that studied the intelligence activities of the CIA, FBI, NSA. Targets of intelligence activity, it said, have ranged far beyond persons who could properly be characterized as enemies of freedom and have extended to a wide array of citizens engaging in lawful activity, the Church Committee found. Their inquiry revealed intelligence agencies engaged in programs without authorization and sometimes even in defiance of express orders. It blamed Congress for helping to shape the environment in which improper intelligence activities were possible. The committee said using informants had the highest potential of abuse, and that it was the Justice Department that often encouraged the FBI to use them. It blamed the Attorney General for neglecting to establish procedures for reviewing FBI programs and activities and allowing the FBI to use highly intrusive investigative techniques with inadequate guidelines and review procedures, and in some instances with no external restraints whatsoever. The Church Committee uncovered lawless and improper behavior by our intelligence agencies, intervention in democratic process, overbroad intelligence targeting and collection, and the use of covert techniques to discredit and neutralize persons and groups defined as enemies by the agencies. What our intelligence agencies were doing, the Church Committee found, was conducting secret surveillance of citizens because of their political beliefs, even when those beliefs posed no threat of violence or illegal acts on behalf of a hostile foreign power. Dissemination of the findings of intelligence investigations took place without adequate controls. Agencies were given reports on political activities of law-abiding citizens. Information that should have been discarded, purged, or sealed, including the product of illegal techniques and overbroad investigations, were retained for future use. The Church Committee gave details of the FBI's covert and often illegal projects described as the Counterintelligence Program, or COINTELPRO, that went from 1956 to 1971. It told how in the FBI's COINTELPRO programs, political candidates were targeted for disruption, how the FBI had programs to disrupt campaigns. The FBI's philosophy was to maintain the existing social and political order by any means available. A major finding of the Church Committee was that the committee finds that the covert action programs have been used to disrupt the lawful political activities of individual Americans and groups and to discredit them, using dangerous and degrading tactics which are abhorrent in a free and decent society. First Amendment rights of citizens were violated. Programs were adopted to deter citizens from joining groups, neutralize those who were already members, and prevent or inhibit the expression of ideas. The tactics used against Americans often risked and sometimes caused serious emotional, economic, or physical damage. Actions were taken which were designed to break up marriages, terminate funding or employment, and other actions that violated due process of law. The FBI and COINTELPRO wasn't just collecting intelligence. They acted as if they were a law unto themselves and covertly disrupted, discredited, harassed groups and individuals. A law enforcement agency must not secretly usurp the functions of judge and jury, the Church Committee report said. In COINTELPRO, it said, some of the targets were nonviolent agents of change, among them the NAACP, the Congress of Racial Equality, and other civil rights groups, Students for a Democratic Society, the National Lawyers Guild, almost all groups protesting the Vietnam War, the women's rights movement, student demonstrators who were not affiliated with any group, those seeking independence for Puerto Rico, Martin Luther King Jr. Over a period of 25 years, the FBI conducted break-ins and engaged in programs and techniques that the Church Committee charged involved transgressions against human decency that were no less serious than any technical violations of the law. The problem with surreptitious collection techniques used, the Church Committee report found, were the lack of adequate standards, limiting their use, and by absence of review by neutral authorities outside of intelligence agencies. Their investigations went on for excessively long periods of time, resulting in sustained government monitoring of political activity in the absence of any indication of criminal conduct or subversion. That's what I wrote, and I took it from the Church Committee's report. Right, I'm going to take a little drink, and I have some lemonade here. And now I'm going to read you another section of my book. And this section is rather naive because way back when, in 2010, this was how innocent government gang stalking was. It didn't involve the torture with new weapons that it does today. So let's go back in history to 2010 when I asked the question, what is organized gang stalking? An inquiry into organized gang stalking has to start with a phenomena first noted by a German industrial psychologist, Dr. Heinz Lehmann. He noted that a group of people would target an individual to force the individual out of the workplace, and he called what they did mobbing. Authors Noah Zanoli, Ruth Disler Schwartz, and Gail Purcell have described how it works in their book, Mobbing USA, Emotional Abuse in the Workplace. Whether taking place in the workplace or in the community, mobbing, as it is called when it happens in a workplace, or organized gang stalking, as it is called when it happens in the community, involves a kind of psychological torture whose goal is to drive the target out or neutralize the target. In the community, it often works by sensitizing the target to a stimulus all the organized gang stalkers use. The stimulus is often an everyday thing, for instance, the color red. The thing that makes the stimulus so aversive is the frequency with which it occurs. A group of 20 or 30 or 50 or more organized gang stalkers might be involved in the harassing of a target. So the target is continuously harassed with the same stimulus, but by different individuals. Every time the target enters or leaves his or her home, for instance, an organized gang stalker will be there with something red on. The target's routines are ascertained. Neighbors, afraid of being gang stalked themselves, might alert the gang stalkers when the target is leaving his or her home. When the target walks on the beach, 3 or 4 gang stalkers wearing red might be there. When the target opens his or her blinds in the morning, the first thing he or she will see is a person wearing red. Organized gang stalkers typically try to be there on entries or exits of the target, so that when the target comes out of a store, the first thing he or she will see will be a gang stalker in red. It is the frequency of the stimulus that makes it so aversive and the isolation of the target. Gang stalkers often target people without emotional support systems. The target's property might have trash thrown on it. There could be car alarms set off if the target tries to take a walk, or the beeping of horns. The gang stalkers might use noise to deprive the target of sleep. A program of touchless torture is set up by the organized gang stalkers in 24/7 harassment of a target. The organized gang stalking might go on for years. Mine has gone on since 2006. All right, I'm going to take another drink of my lemonade, and then I'm going to read you the last chapter of the book that I read, and it's called Do We Have an American Stasi? So first I'll take a sip of my lemonade. And now I'll read from the book I wrote in 2010, when I didn't know a lot about government gang stalking. Do we have an American Stasi? It took the Church Committee to get to the bottom of the FBI's COINTELPRO program that ran from 1956 to 1971. So this wasn't something that the targets of COINTELPRO could prove. It took, I'll read that again, it took the Church Committee of Congress to get to the bottom of the FBI's COINTELPRO program that ran from 1956 to 1971. Who would have believed the notorious things our intelligence agencies did without that Senate committee report? Today, it will take a bipartisan investigatory commission dedicated to restoring the rule of law and stopping the kind of abuses revealed that, and I have a link which isn't there today, but in 2010 it was www.trackedinamerica.org, stopping the abuses revealed at the ACLU's new website, Spy Files. Another link, www.aclu.org/spyfiles. That was back in 2010. Stopping the abuses, it said at that website, that may be part of the president's surveillance program put in place by President Bush and continued by President Obama and other secret programs that may have been put in place. The question that especially needs to be answered is, does the United States now have an American Stasi? The word Stasi is associated with a state security service that arose in East Germany. At one point, Stasi collaborators were 2.5% of the population, which included 10,000 members below the age of 18. There was one Stasi agent or informant, or a part-time informant, for every 6.5 citizens in East Germany. They were in industrial plants, in apartment buildings, in schools, in universities, in hospitals. The Stasi would even report on their own relatives and friends. Stasi collaborators did what they did because it made them feel important to get, or also to get material or social incentives, because they liked the adventure of what they were doing, and for a very small minority, because of coercion. Their goal was to monitor the political behavior of East German citizens, even if they had to use torture and intimidation to eliminate dissent. We know that George Bush wanted to set up a network of citizen snitches. He wanted to engage citizens from many different walks of life in homeland security. What we don't know is what secret programs he put into place. Did he form an American Stasi? Were its members first responders and Stasi citizen stalkers? Did his secret surveillance program extend into all 50 states? Did it even use elderly people, people who have a handicap, children? Does the American Stasi use red cars, red trucks, have some members wear or carry red, and conspicuous surveillance of their targets? Is the tactic being used by the American Stasi organized gang stalking? Do first responders participate in organized gang stalking of American citizens? Has a program of psychological torture been set up whereby targets are not only subjected to conspicuous surveillance 24/7, but tactics are being used on them that are similar to those reported in the Central Intelligence Agency Inspector General Report on counterterrorism detention and interrogation activities. Tactics that include social isolation by getting neighbors involved in organized gang stalking of targets. Tactics that include use of dogs to intimidate by letting them jump out of car windows, letting dogs off their leashes to run up at targets when they try to walk in the community. Tactics that include noise to disturb sleep, to disturb activities targets try to engage in the community, that include beeping when a target tries to take her dog out or go into her yard or take her garbage out, that include car alarms set off or sirens when she tries to engage in activities in the community. Are Stasi citizen stalkers or first responders using technological means to track targets so that they are there at intersections, at entries and exits from the target's home, places where they go in the course of a day. Is information about targets being databased in fusion centers spread all over the United States so that wherever the target moves, she is put under conspicuous surveillance? Is the information being databased, being reported by anybody, a neighbor, a first responder, even reported by friends in mobbing who have a personal vendetta against the target? Are targets being deprived of due process, losing their homes as a result of landlords becoming involved in their gang stalking, losing their means of livelihood? As so many members of the community, this new American Stasi, regard them as subversives. Are the lives of innocent people being ruined? I'm getting a little emotional here. Are the lives of innocent people being ruined by having their privacy taken away, being subjected to a program of psychological torture that interferes with almost everything they do every day for years without end? Is the goal of the American Stasi to neutralize citizens? Is this form of social control being orchestrated by our own government? Such a program would violate the following provisions of the Declaration of Human Rights. And then I read them. I end with the sentence, I, in particular, would like answers to these questions. Back then in 2010, I could say, for almost 4 years I have been an organized gang stalking target. Information I have gathered, trying to understand what is going on, is also at my website. I no longer have a website because I can't afford it. But I could show Senator Paul the pictures of all the red cars that I have taken that have mobbed me if I had that website today, but I don't. I wrote that book in 2010. In 2026, it's much worse, and we need a congressional investigation.